All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the final best ball video of the season presented by DraftKings. In this video, we're going to give you the most important piece of news from every team from NFL training camp and preseason, whether you've been grinding best ball drafts all summer or whether you're just getting back into NFL and you have your home league drafts this week. We got you. We're here to catch you up on everything that has happened over the month of August. What are the most important news items that will affect your drafts? Again, big shout out to DraftKings for sponsoring this video series all summer. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you for tuning in if you've been watching. Welcome. I'm Brian Juster, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. I'm joined by our NFL manager, Chris Rooney. And again, if you've been watching and you're a returning viewer, we may say, why should I be listening to two random guys on YouTube? Well, I've won $1 million in a single day playing fantasy football, and Chris has won best ball tournaments before. So we're the two guys that you should listen to. Chris, what's up, man? It's been a while since we've done a video together. How you feeling?
Brian, I'm feeling great. And shout out to you as well for giving Chuck and I the reins to just kind of drive best ball content for you here on the Occupy Fantasy YouTube channel. We sincerely appreciate it. And I wouldn't be doing the right thing if I let this whole series and show go by without doing that first and foremost here. I'm excited to pick your brain on best ball here on this show because we haven't had you on here this summer. I don't think we've talked to you about best ball specifically on the channel since last summer. So obviously a lot of things have changed, and I'm just curious your thoughts on what's going on in the NFL this year, basically. So,
bro, we got so many takes to talk about. And again, 32 teams, 32 news items. And you and I have been talking all summer about different things. So we'll bring those conversations to light here in this video. This is a live stream. Not many people watch these videos live, but if you are watching live, drop a comment. Say hi in the chat. And if you're watching this on replay, like the vast majority of you will be doing, if you have questions, drop a comment and we will answer them. And also give us your thoughts on some of these news items that we are talking about. So what we're going to do here in this video, we're going to talk about the news items over the next hour. Chris is going to draft a team live on DraftKings, a best ball draft in the $20 Millionaire Maker. And I see we got some people in the chat already. But Chris, you also have up our best ball ADP tracker, which at the beginning of the summer, it was nice to see some movement here and there, but over the month of August, we've seen some absolutely wild movement. And this tool, in addition to our Stack Seeker tool, which is completely free on OccupyFantasy.com, is a great way to track player movement in your drafts for all the news items that we will be talking about.
And no surprise, I have sorted by the ADP change in the last week here, Brian. The player at the top of the draft board here moving is Bill Krosky Merritt, JCM, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. I don't know what he wants to be called specifically, but we do know that he is going to be called the potential RB1 for the Washington Commanders this year.
Yeah, dude. Kind of a meteoric rise, right? A guy who barely played in college the last couple of years, and he will be the highlight of the news item for the Washington Commanders. So I think the format we're going to do here, Chris is going to jump into a draft. We'll talk about some of his picks along the way, of course, but we're going to go division by division, team by team, for those news items. So Chris, while you fire up a draft, let's serve this as a quick reminder here because this is sponsored by DraftKings and football season will be here soon. And if you're drafting early this year, it's not even that much early, right? It's August. If you're drafting at all, DraftKings Best Ball is the move. If you never played Best Ball before, if you're just watching this for your home league drafts, it's simple. You draft your fantasy team and that's it. No lineup, no waivers. Your lineup is automatically set with your best player score each week. And right now, DraftKings is still giving all customers a can't-miss offer. Draft one, get one. Enter a lineup in the $15 million best ball contest on DraftKings, and you'll get another best ball ticket to play for free for a share of $15 million, giving you a second shot to take home a big hit. So download the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app now to draft your $20 best ball lineup to play for your share of $15 million and get that second ticket to play free for that share of $15 million. That's two chances for a huge score without ever setting your lineup again. Draft one, get one, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, Chris, fourth pick, not the first pick for you. So unfortunately, you won't add to your massive Jamar Chase exposure, it seems like.
Now we're going to see if we can mix in probably like a CD Lamb or Justin Jefferson, depending on how the board goes here. And I guess speaking of CD Lamb, we were just speaking about JCM and the Washington Commanders. Let's talk a little bit about the NFC East. And I don't think there's, let's stay with Washington. Obviously, all of the hype and the buzz is about JCM here, but what about the other running backs there after the Brian Robinson trade to the San Francisco 49ers? What do you think about I guess the incumbent RB1, Austin Eckler, and others like Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols on the depth chart here. Should we have any interest in those players?
Yeah, I think so. I think we saw Chris Rodriguez get the start in preseason week 2, and there's a lot of news being made about JCM sitting preseason week 3. But as you and I both have grinded our faces off for preseason DFS, we realized that JCM was a little bit banged up going into that game, so they rested him. What's really interesting to hear is, though, we saw the JCM ADP rise. We haven't seen much out of Eckler, and I think Eckler is just as strong of a play now with Brian Robinson out of the picture. His role won't change much, but if these other guys are ineffective, Rodriguez, JCM, then I think Eckler uh, could increase in fantasy value. But really, Chris Rodriguez is a guy that we should be mixing in round 20 in these DraftKings best ball drafts. Probably not for your home league drafts, but he could get first crack, and then he's looked good so far, Chris. I know you've noted that in our conversations.
Yes, he's looked really good in the last couple of preseason games. Obviously, a little bit more notable that JCM was completely rested for this final game. I think that suggests him and Eckler are probably the favorites to lead this backfield in touches, at least to start the season. But we know with, look, it's the unfortunate reality of the National Football League. We know with the high rate of injury at that position that we always have to be interested in players deeper on the depth chart at running back. Sticking with the NFC East, I guess the biggest piece of news with the reigning Super Bowl champs, Philadelphia Eagles, was this fringe back of the roster traded tight end Harrison Bryant to Houston for John Mechie at receiver. I mean, Mechie probably has to be ahead of Jahan Dotson, but this just kind of feels largely insignificant for most formats other than single game showdown. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, have some adversity once, dude. You win the Super Bowl, and the biggest news item in August for your entire team is you got a new wide receiver for. That's super sick. Congrats. Feel really bad for you, Philadelphia fans. So yeah, Mechie. I don't know if we're really drafting him, but again, we're looking for super cheap stacking partners in 20-round best ball contests. I don't mind Mechie in round 20. We liked him coming out of college, and has looked decent when he's got on the field. Can he beat out Jahan Dotson? Yeah, probably so. I don't want to spend too much time on this, Chris. Congrats, Eagles fans. Hopefully you guys stay healthy because there's no other news items to talk about. But instead, let's talk about the Dallas backfield. And obviously, an ambiguous backfield. Signed Javonte Williams, signed Miles Sanders, drafted Jaden Blue. We already got news that Javonte Williams will start week 1 of the regular season here in 2 weeks. And as someone who is drafting a lot of Jaden Blue, as someone who has him on some sleeper rosters, and I get that notification every single freaking hour, he re-aggravated his ankle. Most internet doctors believe it's a high ankle sprain, and Chris, we know that is a pretty much a death blow for production for running back. So it looks like, despite how ambiguous this backfield was to start a couple of months ago, looks like it's full systems go for Javonte Williams, at least for the first month.
There's never a good time to get injured, right? But of the running backs in this backfield that have been injured recently, I think Miles Sanders was injured at the more correct time earlier in the training camp preseason here, right? It looks like he is returning to action as kind of like the next man up behind Javonte Williams. So right now for me, Brian, I am drafting kind of both Williams and Miles Sanders. And the fact that I have CeeDee Lamb on this roster that we're building here right now, I'm interested in both of those players and trying to get at least one of them, because we do know, while in a single game sample, obviously daily fantasy contests we'll be talking about a lot on this channel, over the life of an entire season, and the first round of this contest being that first 14 weeks of the season, there's obviously positive correlation between starting running back, starting receiver, and an offense overperforming over the life of the season. So if I'm making that wager on the Cowboys with this team, definitely going to be interested in one of those running backs here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That certainly makes sense. So we'll see how this plays out over the remaining weeks. Maybe just lose the guy we want in the playoff time. But again, Miles Sanders around 20. I got him this morning. So definitely an interesting a dart throw as well in this backfield. Moving on, the final team in the NFC East is the New York Giants. And I think probably the most surprising thing here is Jackson Dart looking as competent as he has in the preseason. And maybe, Chris, the more interesting thing to talk about is Cam Skadaboo, the drafted rookie running back who was being drafted ahead of Tyrone Tracy. Then he hurt his hamstring, and now Tracy has leapfrogged him in terms of ADP. As we stand now, I know you and Chuck have talked about this backfield almost every video. Where do you stand now in terms of Tracy versus Skadaboo?
I'm pretty firmly behind Tracy, but the running back that I've actually been drafting the most in this backfield, it is the cheapest one. For those who've been watching these shows, I know I'm very firmly in the wide receiver early camp and then pounce on late running back value in general. But I do think Devin Singletary is extremely undervalued as a veteran player that has shown that he can handle the workload before in the NFL for a couple different teams. And you basically can get him completely free at the end of these contests in the 20th round. So definitely interested in Scatabo and Tracy in a larger portfolio. But if you're looking for like one more running back on your roster with a ton of contingent value and a ton of upside late, Devin Singletary is my highest exposed player in the entire contest right now on DraftKings.
Very interesting. That is very interesting. Again, another guy we can get extremely cheap. Another guy that we saw play with the starters in preseason. We know that not everything matters in preseason, but usage with the first team certainly does have some effects leading into the regular season. Let's look at the chat really quickly. Ready the douche is in there. Boys, boys, boys. It's a pleasure. Yeah, always good to see the douche. You know, the NFL and NBA is back when we see him in the chats. Jose says he's just here to find out who are the best late round rosters, rounds 15 to 20. Thanks for bringing that up. Easy alley-oop, Jose. We did a video on that already. Make sure you check out the other 8 videos in this series. We'll link it it's already linked in the description. We'll link it and pin a comment at the top here too. The playlist Best Ball Videos 2025 here on YouTube on our channel. Chris and Chuck did an entire video on their favorite sleepers round 10 and later. So make sure you go watch that, of course, after you watch this live stream. He also said he accidentally made a mistake and drafted 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week. Don't feel bad because Chuck, the expert on this video, drafted 3 quarterbacks with the same bye week. Chris, it's easy to do when you're doing so many things at once.
I will say specifically on DraftKings, and I've made this point a couple of times, I don't mind taking 2 quarterbacks with the same bye week as long as I have a third one on my roster that can cover the bye week. I think people are by default avoiding those bye week conflicts, so you can actually build your roster a little bit differently if you have like 2 quarterbacks with like a week 8 bye week. Like I'm talking like a Kyler Murray, like a Geno Smith, Trevor Lawrence. People aren't usually trying to pair those guys together. So as long as you're smart about it, I do think you can create some upside there.
JPT is in the chat starting his best ball drafting today. You got 10 days to get in as many as possible. JPT, one of our favorite viewers here on the channel. Glad to have you on board. Chris, before we move on to the NFC North, how are you feeling about this draft so far?
So this is actually my first time I've selected Josh Jacobs because I don't have a ton of these early running backs in general, but he did fall about a half a round in ADP. And with all of the uncertainty in Green Bay's backfield, especially with the injury to Marshawn Lloyd, it just seems to unfortunately be the story of his early career here. Jacobs does seem to be like the biggest winner, right? And therefore someone we probably want to prioritize here at the end of round 2, beginning of round 3.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great transition into the NFC North with Green Bay. Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd's injury is impactful, can't stay healthy, unfortunately. It sounds like he was having a great camp too. And again, it's only a hamstring, but he had some nagging injuries last year as well. But again, like you said, biggest winner there is Jacobs. The other item of note in Green Bay, they drafted Matthew Golden, and everyone, I think, was like, that's a pretty crowded receiver room with Jaden Reed, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson coming back, and Dontayvion Wicks. But by all indications, Matthew Golden is the real deal. Players, coaches, reporters, and his ADP has solidified as a result. Now we see a pretty wide gap compared to what we saw between him and Jaden Reed earlier in the summer.
Yeah, it's like pretty much just him and Romeo Doubs that are like reliably healthy for players we expect to start. A little bit of a situation going on with Jordan Love, though, as well, with that left thumb. I know it's not his throwing hand, but I think that's why Green Bay in general is a little bit cheaper than we would expect them to be. I'm okay with actually pouncing on that and drafting it. I think they're going to have a fine season as far as offensive production is concerned here. A little bit of a slide here with Jaden Daniels still being available. His ADP is up to about 37.5. So here at pick 44, I think I'm actually going to take advantage of that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you like clicking them anyways, but getting a discount and value as an added boost, I know you certainly can't pass him up there, so I like that. All right, other news items in the NFC North for your best ball and your fantasy home league drafts. Let's look at Minnesota next. And Jordan Addison got his 3-game suspension, and it's pretty rough behind Justin Jefferson there. So rough, in fact, that they're trying to trade for the corpse of Adam Thielen. I mean, it's kind of funny that there's always reports that Minnesota is interested in trading for Adam Thielen, and Carolina's like, nah, we're good. Like that's a good report, but we're not really interested in doing this. I've never seen that tactic before, Chris. Just outright giving that item to national reporters and saying, hey, we're trying to trade for this guy. See if you can like facilitate it, move it along. So, what do you make of Addison's suspension, his ADP, and are there any guys behind him that we should be considering?
I just think a guaranteed 3 games off is obviously it's not good. Like we want him to be available for the full season, but players tend to get nicked up, miss a game here or there. And I think if you look across the life of an NFL season, a lot of these players that you're drafting fairly early are going to miss like 1 to 3 games as it is anyways. So hopefully Addison can come back week 4 fully ready to go, able to get ramped up into this offense. And as you've highlighted, there's really nothing preventing him from taking over and dominating as the secondary wide receiver behind Jefferson. So barring a trade, I'm not super interested in any of these other receivers behind Jefferson for the first 3 weeks of the season. I think they'll probably lean into like Aaron Jones, TJ Hawkinson, maybe Jalen Naylor, and a rookie that we just don't see coming would be kind of interesting. But I'm not really sure that there's too much time we want to spend on wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s for Minnesota when they can just throw to those high upside weapons that they have in other spots.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go to Chicago now. And I think one of the most interesting offseason changes was the addition of now head coach Ben Johnson to the Chicago Bears offense. And pretty exciting looking at what their offense has done through basically 2 games that the starters played in the preseason. Chris, some notes that I have is the amount of 2 tight end usage they've used in both Cole Kmet, but obviously Colston Loveland, who has looked the part in just his brief stint so far in the NFL. I think he's much deserving of his lofty ADP as a rookie tight end. And, we heard some rumblings early in the offseason. DJ Moore was like, I may not get the targets this year. And for whatever reason, ADP is not believing it. DJ Moore is still being drafted ahead of Rome Odunze. We look at their most extensive playing time last week in preseason week 3. Rome Odunze was the guy once again. Chris, to me, and again, maybe I'm wrong here, their ADP should be flipped.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here. I have far more Odunze than DJ Moore at this point. I kind of started paying attention to those tea leaves just like you as we were prepping for some of our preseason DFS slates. And then we see Odunze come out and get 5 targets with the starters. DJ Moore get 1 target. I get it. It's just one like half of football. We don't want to completely overreact to it, but let's face it, that is kind of what we do here. And I do think Odunze around where are we going right now? Pick 72. That makes him like a 6th round pick, fringe 7th round pick. It's just too low, dude. I want to get as much of him as possible before everybody figures this out.
I know, dude. And that range is kind of tough because there's a lot of guys in that range that I do like that I need to be drafted more of. So we'll see if I can hammer the guys in that range as much as I can over here over the next 10 days. Now, if we go to Detroit, nothing too worthwhile. I guess the biggest thing is, and shout out to you and Chuck for being on this guy in the very first best ball video back in June, is Isaac Tesla, their rookie receiver, who everyone was like, why'd they trade up and draft this guy? Consensus board, college production said it was such a reach. He's looked the part. He's looked like a legitimate weapon in the NFL so far through 3 preseason games. And it sounds like he's done everything to secure that wide receiver 3 job. Again, Chris, it's if you're stacking Detroit, all their guys go in the top half of the draft. If you're trying to backstack, like a lot of teams, there are some guys available. There are none for Detroit. Tesla at least opens up that possibility if you drafted Goff or you need a secondary Detroit piece late, that maybe he's a guy that catches on, or God forbid one of the top 2 get hurt, and he's an important piece in the second half of the season.
Yeah, look, as good as Detroit has been over the last couple of years, that 3rd receiver spot has been kind of an enigma for them, and there hasn't really been a reliable asset there for them. There's no one there that's really preventing Tesla from taking over, right? I mean, we're looking at Khalif Raymond, Tim Patrick. Like, I just don't think anyone's afraid of those guys holding him behind. So I think he's set up for a pretty good season here.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, as we wait for the next division to talk about, Chris, I see you stacked up Jaden Daniels with Terry McLaurin. I will let you make your pick here. And as you're on the clock, I'll just continue to talk a little bit. Remember, the ADP tracker is updated daily, sometimes later in the day, but updated daily for DraftKings Best Ball ADP changes. And our stack secret, which Chris will be using throughout the show to maximize his correlation for this specific roster. And we had 2 videos on best ball stacking and best ball correlation. Again, make sure you check out the playlist after you watch this video if you haven't already. All right, let's move on, Chris. Let's talk about the NFC South now. And Tampa Bay, your boy, Chris Godwin, got some pretty unfortunate news, was revealed. It sounds like they knew it. The general public didn't know it, but a lot of complications with that late season leg injury he had. It sounds like he might be out until October. Jalen McMillan nearly broke his neck. He's out for half the year. And Emeka Egbuka, who everyone was like, that's a crowded room. Is he really going to produce in his rookie year? Now, all of a sudden, he has a runway to production with Baker Mayfield, and his ADP is adjusted accordingly.
May even have some insight now trying to look backwards, right, into Tampa Bay may have known there was an issue coming with Godwin, even all the way back at the draft, because the question was, why did they spend a first round pick on this kid? And I think we have the answer to that now. I do think that Godwin still has a lot of value when we keep in mind the context of what we're doing here right now on this show, and that's drafting for a contest that culminates in a Week 17 finals. As long as Godwin comes back and hopefully like early to mid-October, looks good and stays healthy through December, I mean, now you can get him around pick 100. I do think there's a lot of upside there, but hard to see Evans and Egbuka not producing here early in the season for sure.
Absolutely. All right, next we have we talked about Carolina. We talked about the Thielen trade rumors going over to Minnesota. We'll see if that actually materializes or not. But really not much else going on for Carolina. I guess if Thielen does get traded, that gives it gives belief in Ted McMillan, their first round pick. But it also gives some belief in maybe Jalen Coker, who produced late last season, Xavier Legette. So either way, all this to be said, Chris, is that I still think it's arrows pointing up for this offense as Bryce Young looks to take another leap.
Yeah, they closed the season strong last year, and their price doesn't really reflect that. So I think we can just kind of leave it there. We're in on Carolina late. They're an easy backstack here with how late their ADPs are in general. Now that I am off the clock for a little bit, we can at least check that out. Let's bring up Carolina. Let's look at their overall ADPs. And like you were saying, you have Tet, you have Chuba, but then nobody else is really difficult to select here. Double-digit round ADPs and later. So definitely feel like if you're looking for like a second or a third stack behind an elite quarterback, which is the way that I prefer to draft, you can grab Bryce Young, you can grab Thielen. Hopefully he doesn't get traded. But even if he does, you still have Legette, you still have Coker here. Definitely some options for sure.
All right. When I was putting the notes together for this show, Chris, I was trying to find something on Atlanta. They are notorious for resting their starters in the preseason under this coaching staff, as we found out and knew for preseason DFS, but really nothing there. Did you find anything with Atlanta that's worthy of talking about? I wrote Kyle Pitts got some hype early in camp, but that's all I have.
I think what we could discuss here is just Darnell Mooney. There's been quite a drop in his ADP that doesn't seem to make sense for something that they think isn't really going to impact him this year. He is going at pick 129. I know he was going in like the low 90s, so he's dropped basically like 30 picks, right? And you still have a high upside outside wide receiver that can catch some deep balls from Michael Penix. And by all reports, Brian, it does seem like Atlanta wants to be aggressive and push the ball downfield with this quarterback this year. So I know it's not a specific news item that has come out of training camp. It's more, hey, this player was already expected to be an asset here. The field has probably overreacted to an early camp injury here, and I think we can take advantage of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. Really sharp call there, Chris. I'm in on this offense in general. Another one where if you're looking for a second or third quarterback, I think Michael Penix has the chance to take a second-year leap. So certainly a good target in your drafts, even if he doesn't necessarily have the rushing upside. Finally, closing out the NFC South are the New Orleans Saints. They just traded for Devon Belly. Anytime you can give up draft capital for a 37-year-old second-year receiver, I think you have to do it. I think what we're all thinking about here, and shout out to Chuck, who's most invested in this, is the New Orleans quarterback position. Sounds like Spencer Rattler has the edge there, but it hasn't fully been decided. Tyler Shuck, which, by the way, is how you pronounce it. And if you weren't out on him before, you pronounce show like Shuck, I think you got to be out. Chris, you and I were talking right before the show, though, right? If we think of playoff weeks and you're looking for a third quarterback on DraftKings and you need someone who is going to get you through bye weeks, I don't know if Shuck's the guy. But if you have an uncertain quarterback room and you're looking for maybe a spike week in the playoffs, I think it's probably Shuck. I can't see a scenario where, unless he's just like absolutely terrible, which is firmly within the realm of possibilities, at least according to New Orleans beat reporters. But I think it's probably Shuck starting the second half of the season or those playoff weeks. So I guess I'd rather click him late in DraftKings best ball drafts. But do you feel strongly about this at all?
I don't. My strongest take about the Saints this year is that I want as few of them as possible in my lineups. Unfortunately, that's really. I'll leave it at that, because anything else that I have to say is not super nice about this team. So,
all right, that is fair. That is certainly fair. You're on the clock now, so I will let you make your pick. And as you do that, we'll transition here, and we will talk about the NFC West. And let's see who you drafted here, Chris. I'll wait till you make your pick. I don't want to pressure you here. 7 seconds left. Plenty of time here to make your draft pick. You say Jalen Warren, Pittsburgh running back. We'll get to the AFC South here, or AFC North in a little bit. But NFC South, or NFC West, sorry, is Let's start with the Rams. And I think obviously you were higher on Puka to start the year, start the offseason. And the biggest question right now is Matthew Stafford's back, where he's kind of like, yeah, it's good. You know how backs are. And it's like, that's not the shit I want to hear when it comes to a quarterback's health going into the season, especially when all these skill position players rely on it. So we've seen his ADP drop as a result, Chris. But I guess the one saving grace is that if he goes down, at least there's Jimmy G, who hasn't played in a while, but at least is a veteran presence that could probably get the ball to these skill position players. But how are you feeling about Stafford right now as of August 24th?
Matthew Stafford is, what is he, 35 years old now? I'm trying to make sure I get this right 37. Brian, not to dox both of us, but we're both kind of like aging millennials right around Stafford's age here. And I think about how my back feels every morning when I wake up. If that is the case for like Matthew Stafford at this point, I think his career is starting to get old quick here. Now, that being said, I don't think this has a tremendous fantasy impact on a guy like Puka Nacua. And the case for that is, let's just look at CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, these other receivers that have played well in offenses with questionable quarterback situations. They've been able to rise above that because of the target volume. I'm going to make a pick here. Give me a second. I'll take Jaden Reed. I think no matter who is under center, I feel like Puka's still going to get his 25 to 30% of the targets. I would be a little bit skeptical of Devontae Adams with a backup quarterback situation, but he's still probably going to see a healthy amount of volume in the passing game as well. If we think this offense is going to have a hard time staying on schedule without Stafford under center, then probably the player we want to be most afraid of is Kyron Williams in the third round, right?
Yeah, especially as someone who is such reliant on his volume and efficiency, or his volume particularly. So, and what you said about Stafford just hits especially hard right now. I am dealing with a back injury. I literally have a pillow behind me. This hour of the day sitting up will be the most excruciating hour of my day. And as someone who is around Stafford's age, and I feel young, but when you hear Stafford and they say he's 37, he's still in the league. It's a medical miracle. No one's ever seen this. It's like, it doesn't make you feel that great. So I certainly understand everything you're saying about Stafford and back injuries with people around our age. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about some younger guys instead in Seattle. I think the most exciting news is Torrey Horton, Elijah Arroyo, their rookie draft picks. You know, sometimes you get some quiet camps. Sometimes you get some exciting camps. Both these guys, by all indications, have had pretty great camps. Horton running with the starters. Arroyo, they're talking about moving all around the formation. I love clicking both of these guys late. If you're in just a regular redraft league, I like clicking these guys and see what their role is for for regular season week one. And you talk about backstacking, Chris. If you take Sam Darnold late, you can certainly tack on one of Horton or Arroyo late.
Yeah, Darnold's ADP being right around pick 160 makes Seattle extremely easy to backstack with those guys. And the other thing I would encourage people to do if you haven't done it yet, just go and pull up Seattle's depth chart. That's something Brian and I have both done a lot of preparing for preseason contests. There's really no reason Torrey Horton can't dominate the other guys behind him and be the third receiver in this offense. It's Kupp, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and then it's a huge drop-off. So I'm not tremendously surprised to hear that he has risen above the pack here. They did spend a draft pick on him this year, and his biggest competition is basically a late career MVS who, listen, I like the upside with MVS. He's had it for a couple of seasons now, but I think the league in general is kind of over him as a player. So,
yeah, dude, he also played until halftime of preseason week 3 with Jalen Monroe, which cannot be a good sign for MVS's prospects. Looking at Arizona, and every single person in the Glendale area is telling us that Trey Benson is basically running back 1B and not running back 2 on this team. James Conner himself said it's going to be a duo between me and Benson. Benson has played very few snaps in the preseason. He might not even played at all. I have to check, but they're treating him as someone who's going to take a big leap for this offense in year 2. And maybe their ADP should be a little closer. I think this is the one area, Chris, where news or the ADP hasn't necessarily reacted accordingly. I love clicking Trey Benson where he's being drafted right now.
I haven't got as much of him as I would like, and I'm big on these backup running backs in general. I think it's just because I've got a lot more exposure to the guys that go right around him. I'll wait until we get to one of the other divisions to talk about some of those running backs here a little bit more extensively, but definitely on the same page with you there with Benson. It's just another year of James Conner getting another year older. It just seems like eventually that's a dam that's going to crack here. So,
all right. Speaking of dams that are cracking, the San Francisco running back and receiver rooms are having extreme trouble staying healthy, and it's just the third week of August. We look at Garindo, the backup running back. He just returned actually, so we'll see. They traded for Brian Robinson, but Ayuk probably gonna start the year on the pup list. Juwan Jennings supposedly ready for week 1, but he's been dealing with a calf injury for like 6 weeks now. And our boy Ricky Pearsall has seen his ADP rise as a result. Might be the only healthy pass catcher. So Chris, lots of moving parts here. Good news for CMC. He's not a part of this conversation yet. And while we haven't talked about it too much, I feel like the biggest beneficiary of all of this might be George Kittle.
Yeah, and he's really, really a strong asset to draft in the third round now. It's pretty much him, pardon me, and Pearsall that are probably going to reliably produce. We did get a little bit of news today that Juwan Jennings should be good to go for week 1. So obviously that's a positive sign for San Francisco, but it's never good to have another year here if you're the 49ers where you're already staring down the barrel of like a giant injury report that you have to issue every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? It just seems like this is a team that, if healthy, should be competing for a Super Bowl appearance year in and year out the way they're currently constructed. But the health has just been a complete question mark for this team for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years now.
It really has, unfortunately, as talented of a team as they are. All right, Chris, before we move on to the AFC, how you feeling through 10 rounds?
This is a typical build for me where I don't have running backs I feel great about, although grabbing Josh Jacobs early is definitely something different than I normally do. I was kind of hoping that Justin Herbert would make it back to me since I have both Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen, but Shafe84 here decided that after taking 3 tight ends in a row, he needed to take an unlinked Justin Herbert. So we move on with our lives and we deal with that. But the reason that I was looking at the Chargers there, let me finally do what I have been promising to do over the last couple of shows and actually visualize some stacks for everybody here. I went with Jaden Daniels, and we look at our playoff opponents. We have Dallas, Philadelphia, and the New York Giants. Well, my first pick was CeeDee Lamb. So if we layer Dallas onto here, the other team that I had a lot of interest in was the Chargers because they are the Week 16 opponent for Dallas, and I was no longer interested in Dak Prescott. So that was a little bit of insight into what I've been trying to do over the first 10 rounds or so here is focus on the correlations with these teams. I'm obviously still looking for New York, Philadelphia, and Minnesota, but that's why I was trying to do that with the Chargers duo. I'm okay with taking 2 receivers from the same team without having their quarterback because we're still looking for upside in single week game stacks in the playoff weeks, Brian. And basically, as long as the quarterback on the other side of that game outscores the one I missed on, and I have that quarterback or a quarterback that I have scores a lot of points, I'm not like tremendously worried about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it actually makes the most sense when you have someone like Jaden Daniels who can run and may not have a stacking partner to bring along with them in a big rushing week. And I think it actually does make a ton of sense to still draft 2 opposing receivers in that type of setup. Now, all right, let's talk about the AFC East, Chris, and we'll start with Buffalo. And they have seemingly 75 receivers on their roster. And Khalil Shakir dealing with high ankle sprain. Sounds like he should be good for week 1, but again, not an injury that we want to see. Keon Coleman's been doing okay. Josh Palmer, question mark, is their next best receiver, right? So, again, we look at Josh Allen, and we seemingly have this situation every single year where you can take Allen early, and then you have basically every clump of 3 rounds of positional player that you can draft and stack with him. And Palmer, we've seen his ADP rise over the summer as a result of some of this news. Are you in on him, or are you just thinking that it's going to be Allen to whoever plus his rushing?
So I think I'm in on whoever is out there catching the football from Josh Allen, right? I try to divorce like the name from it, the player from it. And if you're telling me I can get the wide receiver 2 for arguably the best quarterback in the league, I know there's a lot of guys in that conversation, a big 4 or 5 that everybody likes to debate, but we know that Allen is in that group. We should be interested in that player, especially at the ADP that he has. Speaking of Josh Palmer at this point, glowing reviews for him out of Bill's training camp in upstate New York there. So yeah, I am completely in on Josh Palmer. I was in early in the offseason here on Elijah Moore, but unfortunately it just seems like that has not materialized the way that I hoped it would.
Yeah, I mean that can go one of 2 ways, right? Sometimes we get early on these guys and their ADPs go up, and we got on those guys early. Sometimes they go the opposite direction, and that's some of the beauty and the horrors of drafting early in best ball. We got a lot of comments actually. It's like, is it even worth drafting this early? It's like, yeah, there will be some injuries from time to time, but you can get some value on some players that is just not possible in August. And while it seems uncomfortable, we've seen many $1 million winners in best ball drafted in both June and July. So again, it's August now, so that's a moot point for this year. But just think about it for next year. All right, let's talk about Miami. This is extremely important and very interesting. Chris, 2 items, I think. I know I said 1 per team. Let's talk about 2 here. Let's talk about the running back position first. Devon Achane dealing with a calf, questionable for week 1. Sounds like he should be okay, but not great for someone with his speed. Jalen Wright sounded like, according to horrible reporters, that he would need his leg amputated after the injury in practice. Not even on crutches or in a boot, but dealing with the sleeve. And Mike McDaniel said he is week to week, which not a phrase that you want to hear when it comes to someone's injury. In steps rookie Ollie Gordon, who looks like Raheem Mostert incarnate on his preseason carries. I mean, like literally looks like him in addition to his production. Ollie Gordon, Chris, could be a factor as soon as week 1, which is something that we never thought back in April and May.
No, and I think we have to be interested in an asset on an offense that we think is going to be super productive, right? I think we're still both kind of in on Miami in general. And so for that reason, I think Gordon is an intriguing late rising prospect here in drafts. Really quick, going with Geno Smith to pair with Jacoby Myers, who I picked earlier in the draft as one of my backup stacks behind Jaden Daniels, just to jump back into the contest talk here.
And quarterbacks don't have the same bye week, right?
They do not. No, that is definitely an okay thing, right? I'm okay with having guys that have the same bye week if I have 3 quarterbacks, but Jaden Daniels missing week 12 this year, Geno Smith missing week 8, so we're good to go there.
Yeah, we're on top of it. By the time we get to August, we understand where all the bye weeks are. So the other guy we want to talk about, Chris, you and I had this conversation. We had separate thoughts. We come together and we both had the same conclusion. We should probably be drafting Malik Washington for the Dolphins. You think about Tyreek Hill, there's not been a single positive news item about him. And then we get on the field with Tua, and Malik Washington turns into prime Cooper Kupp with Tua so far this preseason. Design plays, getting him the ball. And he's not even being drafted in every draft, Chris. And I think it's something we got to be interested in.
Yeah, I just got him at the end of my draft, the draft I did before this show. He's going to be a target of mine late pretty much every single time. I need another receiver at this point. I mean, if we're going to get a ton of target volume from Tua Tagovailoa in this offense, it can't just go to Jalen Waddle the entire time. It can't just go to Devon Achane the entire time. So it just does feel like if anything weird happens with Tyreek this year, right, Malik Washington is set up to have one of these meteoric impacts on our fantasy rosters, and might be a player we end up talking about a lot on our videos on this channel if that happens.
Yeah, and again, Jalen Waddle is not a beacon of health by any means. So multiple pass here from Malik Washington, or they just straight up use him in 3 wide receiver sets. They don't use a tight end as much like they did with Jonnu last year after they shipped him off to Pittsburgh. And yeah, speaking of those videos, if you guys are watching this, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. This is the final best ball video, but we'll be having at least 3 NFL DFS regular season videos per week. Monday, Thursday, and then Friday for the main slates. You won't want to miss those. So we love that content, and the grind will start very soon if it hasn't started already. But looking forward to having you for those videos as well. Chris, let's go to the Jets. I know we have a lot of Jets fans in our Discord somehow, but another kind of ADP gap that doesn't make as much sense to me. Yes, I know Breece Hall will be the pass catcher here, but again, all indications that the gap in total touches will be closer than ADP indicates between Breece Hall and running back 1B Braylon Allen. I love clicking Braylon Allen at his current ADP.
Braylon Allen's one of my highest exposed players in my portfolio right now. I'm going to top out around I try to only go 2 to 3 times the field. So again, 8% of rosters are going to have these guys that are drafted because that's just how math works with 12 teams in drafts. I have about 25% of Braylon Allen. So he's at the upper end of the range I'm shooting for because I just think the upside is tremendous here. To your point that you just made, we think he's going to have a high floor anyway, splitting touches with Breece Hall, but God forbid anything happens to Breece Hall, then his upside probably explodes, right? So I love Braylon Allen. I think he's the best Jets player to draft in general this year.
All right, Chris, you're Patriots. You're up there in the New England area. Is Travion Henderson, should we just start fitting him for his gold jacket now before the regular season starts? Because I mean, damn, he's looked good in his limited touches in preseason, and kind of similar to the Matthew Golden phenomenon, where anyone you talk to in New England, whether it's a reporter or on the team, they're like, yo, this dude, he's the goods.
He's definitely a commodity we want to make sure we have exposure to. I liked getting him in the 5th round when we could still do that. It just doesn't seem possible any longer. Where did he go today? I did one right before the show. I know I shared it with you, and he went in the second round. He went in the third round here, pick 32. This just kind of is the range that he lives in now. Anyone behind Henderson that you're looking at here? I want to just take a second to make a pick here.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so I know you and Chuck talked about Ramondre Stevenson so far, but they've talked about bringing Antonio Gibson into the mix. I don't know. It's just when we see someone's ADP rise this much, and you talk about 2 rounds from round 15 to 13, sure. Talk about from round 5 to round 3, that is a massive jump and probably the biggest value jump we've seen. It's interesting. So again, is it just because of how good he's looked? Is it because of the talk? Will Ramondre still have a role here? I think probably. It's, you're the New England guy. You tell me.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is definitely a Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery kind of offensive split of production. I mean, we've seen. We like talking about trends this time of year and what coaching staffs like to do. I don't think either of these guys is a Derrick Henry-like player. So I don't think Mike Vrabel has that option, right, to just give one of them like 30 touches a game. Obviously, for Henderson backers, that would be phenomenal, but I just don't think that's his skill set. I think he's a little bit more in the in like the pass catching running back style, right? So I think he's going to have probably capped at like half of the touches in the backfield. And that means Ramondre Stevenson is still extremely useful. Don't want to spend too much time on the Patriots, but there's also rookie receiver Kyle Williams that they selected in the NFL draft this year. And there's been a lot of positive buzz for him as well.
Not even the best rookie receiver that they have. Yeah, go check out our preseason content for Efton Chisholm. All right, let's move on to the AFC North here. Chris, we're going to be going until 3 o'clock at this rate, so I'm going to try to speed this up a little bit. Let's start with the Ravens. I guess the most impactful thing to discuss is Isaiah Likely's injury. When it happened in practice, I think we all thought the worst high ankle sprain. That sucks. Sounds crazy, but he had a fracture in his foot, which is actually best case scenario. And I don't know if he'll be back for week 1, but certainly early in the season. And we've seen a big drop in his ADP as a result, Chris. I'm scooping him up. I think with that type of injury, he should be back to full health, at least by week 4, week 5, which is certainly enough time for him to be useful as a second tight end or in Lamar Jackson stacks.
Yeah, look, we want players that are on good teams. It's something Chuck and I say pretty much every single show, and we know that Baltimore is one of them, and we know that Isaiah Likely is a red zone target at a minimum, right? So he's definitely gonna have that upside. Let's say he catches a couple of balls in the end zone in one of these playoff weeks, and he's the guy you need. You got a pretty good discount on him right now, so I definitely like taking advantage of that. With the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're the next team on our agenda here. The backfield, you got rookie Caleb Johnson, you got established vet Jaylen Warren. You got a little bit of an ambiguous ADP situation going on there with them both going around pick 90. I obviously made my preference known here by taking Jaylen Warren here today on this team, and I think Johnson was still on the board. So do you agree or disagree with that?
I think, at least in the drafts I've done this week, I've seen that gap widen. And I don't know if our ADP tracker is caught up exactly, but because of Johnson's usage in the preseason where he was playing with the third team, we've seen that gap widen. I think it should probably close back up closer to what it was before. I agree. I'm still with you on Warren being the preferred option of those two, but I do think there's been a bit of an overreaction to how Caleb's been used in the preseason in terms of what their ADP has done since. And speaking of rookie running backs in this division, Taj Brooks has beat out everyone. He's now the running back 2. And an extremely valuable handcuff to Chase Brown here in one of the best offenses in the league. And Chris, we could get him for free back in May and April. Still not really that expensive, moved up a round or two, but Taj Brooks is, I think, another great late round running back target.
Yeah, another one of these situations where, heaven forbid anything happens to Chase Brown, he should just step right into a giant workload. And the path kind of cleared for him a little bit earlier this summer when the Bengals released Zach Moss, who unfortunately suffered a neck injury that's going to keep him out. We think for the season, obviously not being on a roster is going to keep him out for the season as well. Staying with the NFC North, the AFC North, and moving to what I have been anticipating to talk about with you for basically this entire show, the Cleveland Browns, and probably maybe the highest upside fantasy rookie situation, especially late in drafts. We've got tight end Harold Fannin Jr. finally made his preseason debut this week. Caught a touchdown pass from Joe Flacco. I mean, this seems like a really good situation, right?
Dude, I was kind of hoping he didn't catch that touchdown because, yeah, I know you were on this early in drafts. You and I both started looking at stuff. This is the most productive tight end in the history of college football in a single season. Yes, level of competition. The most productive ever. And he's going undrafted. And then it's like, okay, maybe there's going to be a big jump. Maybe they're not going to use him. everything Cleveland's told us has said, hey, this dude is a starter slash co-starter with the David Njoku. Held him out with the starters, even held him out last week in preseason week 2, and then preseason week 3 runs a bunch of routes with Joe Flacco, catches a touchdown, and it's not like they have a bunch of guys behind Jerry Jeudy that are super enticing in the pass game. I mean, Chris, sometimes we do feel like geniuses, and maybe Harold Fan doesn't do much this year, but it is the easiest, absolute easiest click of all time to click Harold Fan late in draft if you need a tight end 3, or if you're going with that late tight end accumulation approach. Dude, it's Harold Fan.
Yeah, I don't think we really have to spend much time debating that here. We're really excited there. The other rookie situation in Cleveland, the running backs in the backfield. We've got a trio of them that people are considering in drafts. The rookies are Dylan Sampson and Quinshon Judkins, who hasn't even signed a contract yet. And then we have veteran Jerome Ford. How are you handling Cleveland's backfield right now?
Yeah, I'm starting to draft more Judkins because it sounds like the charges got dropped, and I don't know if they're going to sign him still soon. There's still obviously the whole situation around what happened there. But you look at the two guys that are currently signed, Dylan Sampson, Jerome Ford, rotated with the starters in preseason week 3, and it makes both guys values, especially if you're doing like a zero running back approach or a hero running back approach, and you're looking for guys who could help you early in the season. Maybe you drafted a few backups, but Sampson and Ford are guys that can at least give you some points in the first few weeks of the season. And while that may go overlooked, that is extremely valuable when you go with a running back by committee approach on your fantasy team. You need guys that can help you in different points of the season. So I think both those guys will certainly help you there. And Chris, are you in on Judkins now? How do you think that situation plays out?
He's got to have some value at some point this season. It just seems like his ability to produce early in the season is definitely a little shot right now. But once again, keeping in mind what we're trying to do here, all the money in these best ball contests, at least the tournaments that we like to draft on this channel, like the $20, $15 million prize pool, $2 million to first place tournament here on DraftKings. The money's all tied up in week 17, and I would hope Judkins is producing by then. We do think Cleveland's, unfortunately, if you're a backer of the Browns here, it's going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year. So by the time we get to December, they should be in full evaluation mode of players that could be a part of their core moving forward. And it's hard to argue that Judkins couldn't be that. Let's not forget that regardless of how you feel about this already, they did give up the number 2 pick that was used to select Travis Hunter in a trade for a pick that they then used on Judkins. So they're really invested in this player.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Speaking of rookie running backs and running back situations in general, we'll move on to the AFC South. We'll go to Houston. Joe Mixon had a 4th, 5th, 6th round ADP early in the offseason, and then it just nothing but bad news about his foot or ankle ever since. May not even play this whole year based on some reports. So we have Nick Chubb, who's battled his fair share of injuries since. But the guy I'm most interested in here, Chris, is Woody Marks, who great pass receiving profile. We saw some clips of training camp of him catching passes. Not great usage in preseason week 3 with him playing deeper into the game when starters rested. But here goes the back and forth of, do you need someone early in the season, someone late in the season? Because Chubb's going to start week 1 here in 10 days or 2 weeks from today, while Woody Marks will be the guy we look at later in the season.
What about Dameon Pierce? You have any thoughts there? There's been some positive camp buzz about him. I've selected him at like the super end of contests, like 19, 20 round pick if I need a 5th, 6th running back. I do think at least early in the season, he might have upside to get us like 10 to 15 fantasy points and at least help us get through a couple of weeks of the season while we're waiting for some other lottery tickets to take off. Agree with you though. Chubb and Marks are probably the better long-term plays, but maybe in the short term, Pierce also could mix in ahead of Marks.
Yeah, I totally forget about him sometimes. So that's definitely a good call there. And he was banged up to start camp. He got back to practice this week. And again, I'm not super sold on Chubb's explosiveness and his return from injury and his ability to stay healthy at this point. So yeah, Pierce is certainly a guy around 20 that we should be mixing in as well, because who's to say? We've seen him be productive in this league over the course of a season. So I really like that call there. Let's move on to other running back news. Tennessee, Tajay Spears, high ankle sprain, it sounds like. Again, one of the worst injuries possible for a running back that's not season ending. So we've seen his ADP drop as a result too, Chris. So Tajay Spears is a guy that I'll take the discount here and hope that he can recover here in time for the second half of the season.
Yeah, I don't really think that there's much behind him that we're worried about in that backfield. But bottom line also should be just wheels all the way up for Tony Pollard as well. It doesn't really seem like there's a lot of threat to his volume to begin the season either.
Yeah, and Cam Ward, by the way, just seems legit. So whether or not he's gonna be a great fantasy player, he could at least stabilize that offense for fantasy purposes. Jacksonville, the most intriguing rookie to come out in maybe ever, Travis Hunter. They're doing what they said. They're using him on both sides of the ball, defense, offense, and Chris, I think he's going to be used enough on offense to justify his ADP. I know you and Chuck have talked about him and being in on him early in drafts. Has anything you've seen over the course of training camp changed your mind there?
No, I love when my priors are confirmed. I think we're going to stick with that take here as we ground out draft season. And I do think that as we come on the board here late in the 18th round, I think it's just important to remember, everybody, this is where it's okay to kind of deviate and just play your leans. And look, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to take Harold Fannin here. I think he's going to be a great asset for the Cleveland Browns. And I needed a little bit more of an upside play at tight end because I kind of waited super late on them in this contest.
And again, it's about mixing and matching player profiles with your specific positional groups. That goes for all leagues, all league types, but especially in best ball. Finally, Indianapolis. I know there's been discussions in every single video you and Chuck did about Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones. It seems like they've given up on A. Rich, and Daniel Jones is starting week 1. Still not convinced that he's good enough to start the entire year. He'll make some mistakes, and I think they'll give Richardson another shot. Are you willing to take either one of these guys late in DraftKings best ball drafts?
Well, I mean, I'm in a position right now, to be honest with you, where I only have 2 quarterbacks. I like to have 3. I feel pretty good about Jaden Daniels and Geno Smith, but I just want that chance at another stack that could be viable in the playoff weeks. I mean, it doesn't seem unreasonable that they would switch back to Anthony Richardson, right? They did spend a first-round pick on him. So, yeah, I am considering him late, but I would definitely not be taking him with the idea that I need to rely on him at some point. I want him purely to be like a late-round lottery ticket that I can use at quarterback. Other offense that I think has that potential here, we've seen a couple of owners make their wagers here on Browns starting quarterback. We know Joe Flacco is going to be starting in September, but I would be very, very skeptical that he's still starting in December if this team is not competitive and some of the other options are healthy that they can take a look at. We saw Shadur get picked a round ago here in round 18, but I'm actually starting to be a little more interested in the player that we saw be really productive yesterday afternoon, Dylan Gabriel. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it just seems like one of those situations where if you have like 2 quarterbacks with a week 5 or week 6 bye, and you're like, I need someone to give me some points those weeks, it's probably Flacco. You need someone to get you points late, or you're looking for a high upside bet later in the season. It feels like basically a 0% chance that Flacco is starting during the best ball playoff weeks, unless they've turned in a 15-0 season at that point, which seems extremely unlikely. But I don't know. Gabriel certainly has the leg up over Shador. Will that change over the course of the season? Chris, these are 2 guys that they want to see what they have in. And so I think both guys will get starts. I just don't know which one's going to get starts to win and how many. It's an extremely tough situation to digest.
Why don't we just stick with some players that we've talked about on this show? I'll grab a Malik Washington Sherrod for my final receiver here.
Hey, there we go. Very nice. All right, and as we do that, we'll close out the show here with the AFC West. Kansas City, biggest news is the looming suspension of Rashee Rice. We've seen his ADP drop as a result. I'm still not entirely sure when, how many games, but it does seem pretty certain that he will get suspended at some point, Chris. So how are you handling the Kansas City situation?
Well, I took Rashee Rice on this roster in the 6th round, and I still have. I've already started kind of working on my my weekly projections. I know you already put this out a few minutes ago, but we are going to have weekly preview videos on this channel for the classic slates on DraftKings, and I'm looking forward to getting back into that grind with you, Brian, for sure. Rashee Rice is a player that I think on a per week basis has wide receiver 1 upside, and that makes him interesting to me in best ball as well, especially when we consider at the beginning of the season he was going as a 2nd round pick. You can now get him. I mean, I got him as late as pick 68 here today. I know that there's a wide range of outcomes in the discipline that the National Football League is looking for here on Rice. It does seem like Adam Schefter is the guy I would trust the most on this, and he seems to think Rice misses somewhere between 5 and 8 games, probably closer to 6 is a comment that he made on a recent podcast of his. I do think that's a little bit scary because if he's going to play for the first month of the season, his next hearing is not until the end of September. We are starting to risk his availability in the playoff rounds, but that's exactly why we can get him at value. And so I'm willing to take that risk here because if I can get a potential wide receiver 1 in the 7th, 8th round that no one else really wants to have on their rosters, I mean, dude, is it a hard sell at this point in 2025 that Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense is worth owning in NFL contests? I don't think it is. So I'm happy to take that selection here.
And it's one of those things, again, you might not know how many games, but you do know. It's not like an in-season injury that you can't plan for. You can plan your roster around it, right? You know that you're probably going to miss this guy for 5 to 10 games even, and you can build a roster appropriate with it. So I think as long as you know that going in, that you can certainly do that. Let's move on to the Chargers. You did pick up Keenan Allen here, Chris. Just really quickly, it seems like at least you're on board with that ADP move from round 20 or whatever when he had not a team to what, round 10 or so now. How do you see him fitting in to this offense with Ladd McConkey?
Yeah, I mean, for Keenan specifically, has to be probably the best spot he could have gone to for immediate production. Goes back where he feels at home, at his longtime home there with the Los Angeles Chargers. I don't think it has a big impact on McConkey, but I do think Keenan Allen definitely has a big impact on everybody else in that receiver room. Does that make sense to you? So I'm a little bit less interested in Quentin Johnston, Trey Harris, Keandre Lambert-Smith, and some of these other young players.
Yeah, and we've seen their ADPs drop as a result. And shout out to you for stacking Dylan Gabriel and Harold Fanning here for walking the walk after we talked about both of those guys. Really quickly, the other news item for Los Angeles that has affected ADP is Najee Harris. Fireworks accident early in the summer, and immediately there were some rumblings like, oh, there might be something going on with Najee Harris. We see him and it's like this dude might not have any eyes after seeing him at practice. And Pittsburgh fans, based on his efficiency, may tell you that has always been the case for Najee Harris. But we got a news item, Chris, today that Najee could be ready for week 1, according to their general manager. Now, his ADP has plummeted. Omarion Hampton, the big rookie running back, we've seen his ADP go up to round 3 now. So, I mean, I wasn't super excited about Najee anyways, but what do you make of this news in general, this report today, and Hampton's ADP jump?
This is an offense last year, completely different cast of characters at the running back position. I believe it was J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards, where everyone was forecasting a split between those two, and then it never really materialized. We had Dobbins kind of dominate for the majority of the season. And Brian, while I wish Najee Harris the best, and he's a player that I was drafting pretty heavily early on before his fireworks injury, it just seems like it's setting up right now for Omarion Hampton to take over that J.K. Dobbins role that Harbaugh had in this offense last year. So I think right now I'm willing to take the risk on Harris just because the value is really strong with the ADP dropping so much. But it's hard not to see Omarion Hampton being set up for a really big role to begin the season here.
I think so too. We got 2 more teams here as we close out the show, Chris. We'll go to the Broncos. Traded Devon Vele, who was being treated as a starter, and Marvin Mims, who just to the bane of my existence exploded on every single island showdown slate in DFS. Sounds like he's locked into the wide receiver 2 role across from Cortland Sutton. And I think perhaps most surprisingly, I was big on this guy coming out of college and extremely disappointed in his rookie year, but it's clicked for him is Troy Franklin. And we've seen him get the starter treatment last week with the Broncos starters. So how do you feel about Marvin Mims as a best ball deep threat? Troy Franklin, are you mixing him in at all? Or are you just mostly taking Sutton and that's it?
Sutton is pretty much the only one that I'm interested in at the receiver group. I love all of the stuff about Mims, and you look at all the fantasy analysts talking about his per snap, per route, upside, his snaps, and if you extrapolate that out to starting volume, well, he's going to be the best receiver in the league, and I'm not really sold there. The player that I believe you didn't mention, correct me if I'm wrong, that I am interested in, especially in light of the Vele trade, is actually tight end Evan Engram. I think he's set up for a pretty big role now in that offense.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I did not mention him, so good call picking him out there. And we will close out this show in no other way than we know how, than patting ourselves on the back, or me just patting you on the back, because in the very first show of this best ball series of 2025, Chris made the flag plant of Dante Thornton being a guy we should be targeting in drafts. Everyone's like, who? Except for Derek on our staff who went to University of Tennessee. And Dante Thornton, at all steps, has just beat out their other drafted rookie, Jack Beck, at receiver. Caught a touchdown just to put the icing on the cake on Saturday in preseason week 3 with the starters. So, Chris, Dante Thornton's the guy we want, a great sleeper for whether it's managed leagues or best ball drafts.
Yeah, so listen, shout out free dummy lineup for the showdown contest that I have on the screen here. It wasn't my intention, but I did want to pull up my exposures because we were talking about the Raiders here. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, Jacoby Myers, Dante Thornton, my two highest exposed wide receivers this year. From an early juncture this offseason, Brian, Chuck and I basically have been all in on Thornton taking over as a deep threat in this offense. There's nobody at receiver that we feel confident in for Las Vegas other than Jacoby Myers. And then it could not run any better than it has this summer. You see Thornton get all of those outside wide receiver routes with Geno Smith and the starters in the preseason, and you see him catch a touchdown here in their final game of the preseason. So wheels all the way up for Dante Thornton. Don't forget about Trey Tucker, though. He does have a very similar skill set, and he is a free draft pick as well.
Yeah, good call. Good call there, Chris. All right, guys, that'll close out the 9th video and the final video of the series. Once again, big appreciation out to DraftKings for sponsoring this video series. Make sure you go play best ball on DraftKings after watching this video. Other 8 videos in this series. You still have 10 days until the season starts. Plenty of time to consume all the content that Chris and Chuck have done. Yes, some of the picks may have changed, but the strategy remains the same for best ball contests on DraftKings. Chris, big thank you to you and Chuck for doing these videos all throughout the summer. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. And if you have any questions, again, comment on the video. First of all, show your appreciation for Chuck and Chris. So comment on the video thanking Chuck and Chris for these videos all summer. 2, if you have questions about best ball, fantasy football, drop them in the comments. Or you can join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord, where we're in there seemingly 24/7, ready to have conversations about anything related to sports. So Chris, I'll give you the floor. Final thoughts. Close us out on the show.
Brian, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me and Chuck host this for you once again as we close out the best ball series for the 2025 season. Thank you to DraftKings for sponsoring the content here on the channel. I would say continue to hammer those wide receivers with upside early. Grab some of these lottery ticket running backs late. And make sure you watch all these strategy videos. We are available in our Discord, linked in the description of the video below, to answer any questions over the final 10 days or so of the draft season here. And there are plenty of contests still available to get started drafting in if you have not done so just yet. So Brian, once again, thank you very much. And I look forward to talking to you soon, bud.